What's going on, everyone? This is Keisha Lon Cole for Brick TV, and you're watching Waxing Cinematic, the series where we engage in some scintillating and value-added conversations with the best creative voices in cinema, indie and otherwise. We're gonna right now wax cinematic with one of my favorite content creators / actors that I've had the pleasure of working with, the illustrious and hilarious Alex Speak. What's up, Alex?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm good. I'm so glad to be here, and so so glad to have gotten the chance to work with you and Brick. It was awesome.
I'm feeling a little teary, like the baby is being born. Can't wait to even talk more about it. So tell us, what is 86? Because both of us do have a restaurant background and foreground, and we know that is, the lingo in the restaurant world. So tell us all about 86.
Totally. So 86 is a series that's about a group of restaurant workers that decide to stage a holdup to save their failing business.
As you know, the restaurant has fallen on hard times.
Oh yeah, really?
This place used to be really something.
Hello?
Why don't you cross off all the items of the menu that we don't have?
Is the restaurant gonna close?
A convenience store is having a field day as the community rallies around it after a tragic robbery.
Let's go! We need to fake a holdup.
What? Your idea is to stage a robbery!
And I know just the people to pull this off. My coworkers.
So it's like an ensemble comedy, essentially, but the term 86 is also used in a restaurant when you run out of something. Like if you don't have any more of something else, to be like, oh, 86 beef. So that's where that terminology comes from. And, it was just sort of slyly about the restaurant in question in my series. Yeah, we filmed it in 2019. I'm super excited for people to get to see it.
Was it metaphorical, or what do they run out of in this dark comedy?
Oh, so the conceit is that it's about, a young woman who is struggling to maintain her family business because her father recently passed away and she inherited it. And so 86 is in terms of the entire restaurant might be 86. That's sort of the metaphoric thing about the title. I started writing it because I've worked in a ton of restaurants, and I always think that it is just a hilarious, breeding ground of experiences and people that are sort of randomly put together. And I thought it would be a really good place to set an ensemble comedy of this kind.
And, you can't not laugh at what ensues on this particular series. Full disclosure, I am an executive producer on 86. The dark comedy thing is definitely the Brick TV niche. I want to go back a little bit, not that far, but to Blank My Life, because, so dark, so interesting, so zany. Alex, again, in front of the camera, creatrix, tell us about Blank My Life and where in your dark, twisted mind did this come from?
I don't know. I wish you were still here so we could hang out.
Blank was my first series that actually spans from seasons 1 to 4, honestly, which is wild. And I felt like, it started really small. The first season was sort of, we were filming on DSLR cameras and borrowing. Nobody was getting paid and such. And then sort of it evolved, and each season sort of got more cinematically complex until the last season is about a young woman who accidentally shoots her best friend and then is haunted by his ghost. And it sort of is this story about, resolutions between friendships, moving on, about grief. You're intangible to the other person. And that idea is sort of what I based Blank off of, that there's this permeable sense that somebody is within reach, but that you still can't access them, I guess. But it's also I think it's really, really funny. But I feel like for me, I like to have a little, some sort of an undertone of either grief or struggle or ambition that kind of, to me, makes the comedy more interesting in when I create work.
Definitely interesting, to say the least. If everybody definitely go check out Like My Life in addition to 86. And you also picked out your co-star Ben to go behind the camera in 86. Can you talk about that process and how it was working with him in both capacities?
Ben is directed all of 86, and Ben and I have worked together for a long time. We went to college together, and he was a director and I was an actor. But since college, we've always worked really closely when I've been like making other series.
I mean, come on, Susan. I'm not that bad company.
You're alive?
No, Susan, I'm dead. You killed me, remember?
He is somebody who is so attentive to detail, so intelligent, incredibly good at using cinematic history to like undercut and accelerate moments. Like there's a moment at the end of the first episode of 86 where the protagonist has this like incredible realization. And what Ben's idea was that we were going to sort of mock the baby carriage scene from The Untouchables, where there's like a baby carriage falling, which is a very like dramatic, intense moment, but it's mirrored in 86 in a really like comedic way. And Ben is always so great about doing that, about finding these sort of like inspirational pedestals in cinema to subvert and make our work A, more exciting, but B, it's so different and so similar to what I had written. And he will always make the work stronger in that way. As we are in this very prolonged pandemic situation at the time of filming, but our favorite bars, of which Downstream in 86 is like a bar restaurant, they are struggling right now. Can you talk about how timely this whole message is that happens fictionally, that is oddly happening right now? Because we obviously, when filming started, it was back in the old normal times, pre-COVID. When I wrote this, obviously I had no idea, COVID-19 wasn't a glimmer in anybody's eye. It was non-existent.
I'm here from Vira Colony to check out the property.
Vira Colony?
Oh, it's an app for detecting and destroying viruses.
That's morbid.
Oh, you know the half of it. It's like pew, pew, pew. Boom, boom, boom. Boom. Oh, say something. Yeah, you don't know the shit that I've seen.
And I wrote it sort of thinking about it as a mixture of like Ocean's 11, sort of like a heist idea, along with a mixture of like Waking Ned Devine. And so I sort of thought of it in terms of like, oh, it's like kind of really like scrappy Oceans in a restaurant.
Robber, having done the deed, says something like, "Stay down! This shit's still a robbery!" and leaves.
Ooh.
And our customers will back us up. Easy peasy.
Okay, but what if a celebrity happens to be there?
Yeah. Or what about a casting director?
Yeah. Or like someone really cute who maybe wants to date you.
Now, I definitely think the idea of like desperation in terms of trying to like keep a place that you love afloat is incredibly resonant. You know, I work at a restaurant, I have since I moved to New York. I'm still working at a restaurant. I am not the owner of that restaurant in any way, but it's definitely interesting to watch firsthand at, like, you know, how people are trying to adapt anything to keep your business afloat. Like, I mean, I think the fact that outdoor dining in the middle of like the freezing cold being, you know, the answer is like, in a way, it's like, oh my God, that's like crazy. I didn't know how resonant it was going to be when I made it, but now I completely think, you know, it's something that a ton of people can relate to.
I think I'll do the farmer's breakfast. Steak well done, please. I love medium rare, but I can't risk it with the little one on the way.
Oh, how far along are you?
Any day now. Can't you tell?
I'm not really clear on the stages of pregnancy.
Well, it's very exciting because we have a history of failed pregnancies.
Don't tell me this.
It's my duty to demystify the miscarriage.
Oh, God. Sorry, I'm just looking for your waiter.
Not to give everything away, but just to talk a little bit about Monica's story and sort of who she is and where, because, you know, it's interesting, you know, you being the writer, but you're also the star, and you embody this character just so believable, so like interesting, like your choices, your comedic choices, or dark comedic choices.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, yeah, I wrote this project, you know, I've always been in my own work. And so I sort of knew that I was going to play this character. I see Monica as sort of like, you know, sort of like a struggling sort of former party girl, essentially. She has a lot of sort of unresolved emotions, especially with her friend who also works at the restaurant. And I think Monica is an incredibly, I wouldn't say ambitious character, but she's incredibly scrappy. She really, really wants to make sure that she can keep the restaurant together because she feels an onus to her family and to sort of her lineage to uphold this restaurant. And I think that, you know, it's interesting because when you're writing it, you know, you can't, I try to think of them as two separate things. Like, I write it, and then when I go at it as an actor, I have to try to forget sort of my intention as a writer and just be where I am. But it was a huge pleasure to play Monica. I think she is the most, I think she had a little bit more of like a brash, sort of in-your-face personality more so than my other character in Blank My Life was a little bit more muted, a little more, you know, trauma had left her a little bit more empty, whereas Monica is like totally like a fighter, like put the boxing gloves on, and it was just super fun to, I mean, it's so fun to get to act it. And also the rest of the cast was just so amazing.
You're fired.
You can't fire me! Fuck you! Fuck you!
Couldn't believe how stellar the cast was and how kind they all were. Like, I really did feel like we were sort of a little family together. It was awesome.
And that's the worst part. Even like the rap party was such a joy, but then you're like, oh, I mean, I was really, you know, sad because, you know, I didn't get to come to set every day and see you guys. Can you just talk, maybe just go through like some of the characters, you know, Mary, Omar?
So we have OG, who's a server, and Chris, who's a server. OG is a struggling actor who was played by Yonatan Gebeyehu, and he was amazing.
When all is lost, I just get mad. When everything seems to be over, just start screaming. That's how I booked that tampon commercial. Ah!
This ends
in chaos.
And then Chris is is another server whose big desire is to find a partner before his mom dies. So that's sort of his want throughout the series, is to get a boyfriend.
So I noticed you're in food delivery?
Yeah, I bike up and down BK like 20 times a day. You know, not to brag or anything.
That's so cool. Do people ever like try to special request you because you're so good looking, and then you scoot up in your bike and hand them the food and your eyes meet and you fall in love over pad thai?
No, I just do what the app tells me.
Oh.
Miri is Monica's best friend, who is the manager at the restaurant. And the two of them have sort of unresolved, or Monica has sort of romantic feelings for Miri, but Miri has a crush on Omar, who is the bartender. And Omar and Miri sort of, have a little bit of a Jim and Pam flirtation, and are sort of more interested in each other.
So are you going home?
Are you going home? Oh, you're making fun of me?
I'm not. It's just, where else would I be going?
I don't know. I just thought maybe you'd want to, watch a sports game or something.
Oh, sports. Yeah.
I'm just making conversation. I don't, I don't have any other thoughts in my head.
You want to come to my place? So cute. We can watch your TV.
I don't know. I've fallen for that before. I'm not going to fall for that again.
I need to brag.
But the big crux of the show, I think, is between Monica and Miri, because Miri sort of holds the standpoint that it's better to cut your losses and move on, whereas Monica feels like it's better to try to hang on to the restaurant with as much fervor as humanly possible, even if that means putting people in a risky situation. So in a way, Miri's the voice of reason.
Dear God, if you get me through this, I will canvas. I'll donate money. I will go door to door.
Don't lose your shit right now. Stop sounding crazy. You're right. I'm not gonna decide who I vote for till I get to the polls.
And then there is a busser named Jorge, who is sort of the, he sort of feels to me like the watcher of the show. He's incredibly loyal to Monica and sort of has grown up with her and grown up with the restaurant. So there's like an incredibly tight bond between the two of them as well.
Where you go, I go.
See you next summer.
See you, Monica.
The cast was just like, all of them knocked it out of the park. I'm like so glad that everybody played who they did, honestly.
Now, speaking of the characters of Jorge and Omar, you did decide to have some of the scenes in Spanish, and what motivated that? Because, it really just feels so authentic. I'm happy it's there. It really reflects the diversity that is Brooklyn.
I don't speak Spanish fluently, just for everybody out there, but it's encouraged that you try to communicate in Spanish where you can, that to show, a form of like respect and sort of that we are, a family who can communicate with each other.
Hey, amigo.
Sí, ¿qué pasó?
Estoy buscando trabajo de lavaplatos, tal vez aquí.
Escucha, amigo. Usted no quiere trabajar aquí, ¿entiende? Ahora, vamos. Váyase. Vaya, ándele. Loco, qué bárbaro.
Because I've worked in a restaurant that sort of holds that precedent, I have, I know a little bit, and I think it was incredibly important to me. A lot of my friends in the restaurant are Spanish speakers, and I think that that's something that does feel so correct. When we were auditioning people, we had people audition in Spanish. Neither the director nor I were Spanish speakers, so we were sort of like, sort of listening and just sort of being like, okay. But it was very important to me, for sure.
Just to go back to the indie filmmaker whole conversation, you produced the awesome Blank My Life. 86. All I don't know your budget for Blank My Life, but we're in the indie realm. I'm assuming all in the indie realm. How do you do it? How do you do it? Like any tips and tricks for like aspiring indie filmmakers?
Having done a fair amount of producing for indie projects, the thing that is always shocking to me in every aspect of it, but also especially in like location scouting, is that there are going to be a ton of, you know, restaurants or Airbnbs who are like, oh, absolutely not. You would need to, you know, give me, you know, $100,000 to rent out the space. But then there will always be somebody who's like, oh, this is a wonderful deal. Like, I'd love to, you know, share my space and will work with you. And I've always found a lot of success in indie projects in sort of like trying to see where I have, you know, some relationships. Like we've filmed at a place called Bluebird, which is in Flatbush. And I knew that they had sort of a, you know, a stand-up comedy night, and they did a couple, like they commonly had artists in the space. And those sorts of spaces usually be a little more like, oh, you know, we already understand that world. We have people working with us. But I also definitely feel like in like looking for locations on an indie level is one of the most important things, because you need to find somewhere that sort of is going to give you a production design in it already, rather than, you know, you could rent out a place that has nothing in it, but then you're going to have to bring in ovens and set dressing and stuff, and that's going to multiply cost. You know, the first season of Blank that I did, there wasn't any formal budget. Like I gave people maybe $20 for the day, like the director, or I gave like the director and the VP like $20 for the day. And at every step in my career, because I haven't ever yet made something that I would consider outside of the micro budget realm, I think I'm excellent at selecting people who are going to go above and beyond for me. And I think that when you're an indie filmmaker, what you really need is to find, you know, those people who are going to believe in you and who are going to really get down to you know, to make it look as good as possible.
All the content creators coming up really need to know that they have to, you know, be likable. You know, that is such a big part of how you broker deals. And I know, like, you have the kind of personality that, you know, people just, we want to work with you. You know, you're so on top of everything. You have to really manage almost like all aspects. So it's, you know, gone are the days when unfortunately the indie creator can just make their work and then walk away. You know, it's just like having to have, you know, like, and it'll just be beneficial for everybody to just, you know, take the reins. It is the era of the film entrepreneur, and it's, you know, all about like, you know, making that budget, and if not, you know, you get your foot in the door with the indie budget, and then, you know, Sundance, here we come.
Like, I think really you have to be really real about your budget. And I think if the budget isn't really there, it's good to suit your content. Like, it's good to suit your content to the amount of money you have. So like if you have, you know, $100, you know, filming in your apartment is a great option because you do have access to that space or somebody else's or a friend's location, and try to design for what you already have. And then just try and find people who are really going to believe in either the project, the vision, but honestly, especially in you, you know. And for me, a huge part of that has been employing people who I know, you know, love me and who I love. And I know that we're going to work together to make it, you know, to try to make something really special. And sometimes, you know, we swing and we miss, but I've been so incredibly proud of the work because of the people who have been willing to go the distance. And I just think that's what you you know, that would be my advice, is be real about your budget and be real about what your budget like can accomplish for you, and try to find people who, you know, who would roll down a hill after you if you tripped.
I'd love to talk a little bit about your inspirations. And I called, you know, to do like a quick straight fire round, what are the top 3 things that you're streaming right now and kind of digital content obsessed with?
Oh my God, this is so embarrassing. But number 1 is definitely Survivor. Number 2 would be, gosh, oh my God, honestly, Last Dance and Cheer. I'm big into competition shows. That's like oh my God, it's an amazing. No. Oh.
Favorite directors, top 3?
Yeah, I would say Edgar Wright. I mean, I would say Scorsese, and I would say Greta Gerwig would be my favorite directors. But Edgar Wright is my favorite director. I love him.
Since we're waxing cinematic, for the non-cinephiles, what did he do?
So he directed Shaun of the Dead. He directed Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which I think is like, he directed Baby Driver. Like, I think Shaun of the Dead is like my favorite movie maybe of all time, because it's just like, you know, it's a zombie comedy, but I just think it is so incredibly intelligently shot. Like every screen like has so much information in it. Like there's one like scene that's a very tense sort of mother-son moment, but in the background there's like, you know, a zombie trying to get out of the car, and it's just every shot has these like jokes sort of inherently in it. I think the acting is so good. It's and you know, I just think it's like incredible. It's incredibly well made.
I know why I call this waxing cinematic, because I guess I can talk, and being in quarantine, don't get to talk as much as I used to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being, you know, the best partner to work on this series with, and for executive producing, you know, the crap out of it.
Always, and such a pleasure, you know, chopping it up with you, Alex, and I can't wait for all of you guys to check out 86 on Brick TV, and yeah, that's all I got. It's been awesome.